corpus callosum gives them insights that people call abnormal, and they give them some Duracine, shut them down. This way they won't be able to communicate this stuff that they see that you and I may not have yet come to see because we're still operating over 10% of our brain matter. So the whole idea is to see ourselves expanding our gray matter to the degree that it informs us to cross over the corpus callosum. Jot that down. Corpus, C-O-R-P-U-S, callosum, I don't know how you spell that, but anything close to it, sounding blend, will be good. Is the crossover fibers that bring you into reality of what's happening in the present moment. So it's important that you know that the right brain, which is the intuitive part of yourself, is underused, inactive in most of us, and this is why we only get linear thinking, which is on a straight line, which is 2 points, which is short-lived. So we have to be able to cross over so we can be creative in what we know, so we can maintain a higher quality of life in the present without having to rely on outside modalities for existence. Keidi Owadu, also known as the conscious Rasta, is responsible for voluminous volumes of information that comes from within him because he has taken time to do the work of gathering information. He has been researching, writing, and publishing the Conscious Rasta Report for 7 years. And as a full-time lecturer, he is, check this out, a nearly constant traveler. I don't know what that means. Nearly constant traveler. Is that like an oxymoron? It's like when he goes somewhere halfway and he comes back, so he nearly constantly travels. But this brother is always on the move, hard to catch him. And not because he's inactive, because he's so active. And he's so dedicated, committed to making sure that he drops the science. Living mathematics, nothing else. Pure, undiluted truth that you have seen probably all your life and didn't know how to expose it. So he's here for us and as a purpose to decipher stuff that you may have seen. And nobody's assuming that you come in here not knowing or avoiding. You need some more clarity on stuff. And this brother, trust me, will be clear on his dynamic, on his purpose. I'll say this and I'll bring this brother on. All of us on this road, this journey to where we want to go as our destiny, as we claim, don't understand that on this journey, this path that we are on, there's only 5 major reasons why you will make a stop as you are traveling. And of course, most of us who have traveled over the road, traveled from state to state, in your vehicles, your cars, know that there's 5 reasons why you may stop on this road. It's a long journey. And this is supposed to be a long journey for us, even though we have a short-lived one because of our distortions of truth. But as you're traveling, you say, I'm going to New York. New York is 940-something miles from here. You know that you're not going to go through a straight run. Some of us do, and I'm going to tell you what happens to those who do. But most of us, we travel and have different areas where you can pause for whatever may be required in your pause in. So you may stop for maybe gas. So that would be like a refueling process, right? So I want you to think about where you are in this pause. You may stop because you may want to eat. Same thing, refuel. You may stop because you want to rest before you regroup and get back on your path. You may stop because you want to get some directions, because you may think you're lost, or you may used to be lost, right? How many of that so far? Is that 3? How many are following? Okay, and you may stop. No, I said it's 3. Because one of them is counted. Refueling, gassing, and eating is the same thing. Refueling, getting more fuel so you can go on. The second one was rest. The third one was directions. The fourth one is to relieve some stuff. Because you may, y'all know whatever y'all relieve, I don't know. You have to stop for those areas to get yourself flowing because you have maybe something pending inside your physical body and you can release some luggage, as I call it, some stuff. Right, that's 4, right? Or you may just be stopped because you didn't want to stop. Because you're speeding. And that's where the blue lights come in. That's where the police, the traffic control says, pull over. You in a hurry? Where you running to? Slow down. Here's a ticket. If you don't want to slow down. You have to find out what stop is this for you. Because many of you are all not here for the same reason. Find out why you are here and what the brother Conscious Rasta is going to provide for you in this course for yourself at this point as a master. You are the masters that are gathering today. And it is your life that you are now being called to answer to the contract that you came here to be a part of. So I want you to reflect on why you're here and why did you take time to be here to gather information, whether or not it's one of those 4 or 5 reasons. Did somebody pull you over and you feel like you're getting ready to crash? You know, find out what it is that allows you to be in this place at this time per your agreement with the contract galactically that you made when you first incarnated into this physical being called third dimension. So you want to be able to see exactly where you are and how you see yourself in the equation, and thank yourself and your guides for allowing you to take the time to breathe long enough to absorb and infuse internalized information. And as I bring you, our brother, get him from behind that camera, to you, I want you to thank him beforehand by giving him a warm round of, they call applause, for sharing with us today, Brother Keidi Owadu, a.k.a. Conscious.
I want to thank very much my brother Wanik for his eloquence of introduction. I want to thank our sisters and brothers at Serious Books, Cultural Communications, for having the foresight to put this event on today. It is an African tradition that I, as a young man standing before the village, would ask permission of my elders to speak today. Are there any elders here today over the age of 50? May I have your permission to speak? Thank you very much. I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, and welcome to another round with the Conscious Rasta, coming at you live and direct, 3D and digital in your face, just like your mama always wanted it was going to be. We are gathered here at Georgia State University. Calendar date is March 24, the year 2000, according to the Roman calendar. 23rd, time don't matter. I guess I'm out of sea lock. On time. The 23rd, in the Roman calendar, the year 2000, many of us have recognized that the Romans were Johnny-come-latelys to the party of civilization, and that the others had developed accurate solar calendars before then. So we, the African seed, refer to the Nile Valley calendar, which was the first accurate solar calendar introduced on this planet in modern civilization. So according to our calendar, it is the year 6240. We entered our 7th millennium back when the Europeans were struggling between the years 1768 and 1769. They forgot year 0. So you are absolutely right, my brother Wanik, when you say that for us to be out of time is far more serious than the watch says one time, and we were supposed to meet according to that watch. The watch itself is very, very late. And we have been out of time. We've been out of synchronization with our own cultural, civilization-based calendar. So today we're going to address the realignment of ourselves to ourselves so we get our power back. Today I'm going to be talking about the water and air principles. The water and air principles, a very, very serious subject. First of all, I need to know how you're feeling today. You feeling okay? You're feeling all right? You look good. You smell good. But I need to know, do you sound good too? If you feel okay, let me hear you say yeah. If you feel okay, let me hear you say yeah. And if you came here to change yourself so you can change your family, so you can change your community, so you can change this world, let me hear you say, hell yeah. That's what we're talking about. The water and air principles. This goes directly to the heart of the metaphysical sciences that were introduced to the planet and developed to perhaps their highest state in the ancient Nile Valley kingdom of Kemet. Today we will be dealing with the 4 cardinal elements. These 4 cardinal elements are fire, water, earth, and air. We're going to deal with these 4 cardinal elements as they relate to the different natures of human expression. The nature of human expression is how we really interact with each other. And if you understand the nature of human expression, then you will always understand in any particular situation why people are dealing with you in the manner that they're dealing with you. That was the beauty about our ancient African Nile Valley and other traditional cultures around Africa. They gave us simple modalities through which much broader, complex issues would operate. And if you understand the simple modality, it is as if you have a road map. And with this road map, the roadmap of human interaction and of human communication, with this road map, you basically can get yourself through all of those myriad of contexts and expressions and communications that you're going to have, many of which, had you not had the road map, you would have never understood. Well, with the cardinal elements, it was such a powerful roadmap that we've seen others attempting to emulate what we had just with those 4 cardinal elements. I'll give you an example. I want you to imagine in your mind, I'm going to paint a picture. Normally I would show this up on the screen, but I did this the other day in Los Angeles, and it worked much, much better because your imagination is the palette of the future. Am I correct? Let me repeat that. You may not have understood. Your imagination is a palette, is the artist's canvas on which your future, your family's future, your community's future, and your nation's future will be painted. Am I correct? Yes. So we want to get you to use your imagination. So I want you to imagine right now we have a scenario. We have this big billboard in front of us, or something we're going to paint on. We're going to put something right in the center of it because this canvas represents the universe, represents the world. So we need to put something in the center of the world. According to a broad base of knowledge, spiritual information, the center of it all is a divinity, a divine creator. The divine creator we know by many, many names. Here, under the hegemony of Western culture, we have come to refer to that divine creator as He, God. But before we encountered Western culture, we had our own names for the divinity and for the divine creator. And we didn't always call it a He, God. We had names like Chineke, Chukwu, Ra, Jah, Jehovah, Yoshua. We had names like Ngai, Oshun, Ologun. With 1,200 distinct African cultures, we had many, many different names, but there was universal a concept of a centralized divinity. So for our purposes, we will call that the divine creator. It has neither masculine, it has neither feminine. It certainly does not come from Northern Europe. The divine creator. So we have painted on our canvas the divine creator. We will represent that by a star, just the way our ancestors did, using the term Ra. So surrounding this store, let's have other stores. So we can have a balance. We're going to have 4 groups of 3 stores. 3, 3, 3, 3. Each representing the 12, you recognize those immediately, representing the 12 houses of the zodiac. And 3 of the different houses, each representing a cardinal element, polarity. 3 stores of that zodiac will represent fire, 3 for water, 3 for air, 3 for water, or 3 for earth. So we have a central star surrounded by 12 other stores. Underneath our central store, we have a pyramid. You recognize the pyramid. The ancients gave us that as a symbol of the most stable structure to be constructed within this physical environment. There is no more stable structure on this physical environment that we could physically create. There's no more stable structure than a pyramid with a broad base coming to a point. And the ancients also gave us a point of reference that at the head of that pyramid, the capstone represented that divine creator. So at the head of the pyramid, over the top of our pyramid that we're painting, you see that center star. What I want to show you, the cardinal element says there is balance. So if there is a pyramid at the base and a center star, there would also be a pyramid at the top pointing down with the same center star at its capstone. You know what I'm talking about. And if you take these two pyramid structures, superimpose them upon each other, bring them together, you have what is called the Star of David, which is a pyramid and an inverted pyramid superimposed upon each other. So we have now in our imagination, center star, pyramid at the base, pyramid at the top, pointing down. But wait a minute, the four cardinal elements all come from each side. So we're bringing in two more pyramids coming in from the sides. So we have four pyramids. We have the center star, is the capstone of all four pyramids. The four pyramids represent fire, water, earth, and air. We have the four cardinal elements. Very serious. And last point, over the pyramid, housing the stars, we have the blackness of the sky. That blackness of the sky. Our ancients gave us that representation, the blackness of the sky, which held the stars up. We call it the goddess Nut. The goddess Nut held up the sky, held up the stars. So when you finish painting this image in your mind, central star surrounded by 12 stars grouped in 4 groups of 3. We have 4 pyramids, each pointing in from the cardinal elements. And the blackness of the sky holding the stars up. You know you have just painted that so-called Confederate flag. That's what that so-called Confederate flag is. A representation of your Nile Valley achievements. So I came to answer the question, how was it that we are reacting when others take what we have developed and use it to empower themselves? Why are we always reacting to others doing that? Why don't we claim what that flag represents and come up with tactics and strategies to claim everything that the flag is flying over? They're protesting that flag flying over the state capital of South Carolina. Well, I've done the studies. South Carolina has enough black people with enough of a fertility dynamic that if they should decide that is what they want to do, in 20 years, black people in South Carolina can take the government. Leave the flag up, just change the colors to reflect the true colors, the blackness of the night as opposed to the blue. And also change the colors from the red pyramid back to the gold-covered pyramid. I find it puzzling that African Americans are again protesting something they know very little about, the so-called Confederate flag. The flag is founded upon ancient African science from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, and has encoded symbolism based upon sacred principles of metaphysical cosmology. It's your flag, it always has been. The flag is made up of a center star representing Ra, aligned with 12 additional stars representing the houses of the zodiac. Additionally, 4 pyramids, each facing toward the center star, represent the 4 cardinal elements: fire, earth, water, and air. The pyramids are separated by the blue sky, which hold up the stars, this being a representation of the Egyptian goddess Nut. So we need to think about this. We need to reconsider. See, the thing about it is our ancients taught us to see deep symbolism. They say a picture is worth what? 1,000 words. So our people wrote in pictures. That's very, very profound. They wrote in pictures so they could get so much broader concepts onto those walls and wouldn't have to be too wordy. I know you know some people are probably too wordy in their conversations. Well, you need to teach them to paint their imaginary pictures, to paint on that palette using more visual symbology. Let's deal with these things called the cardinal elements. This is the basis, the gist of what I'm here to talk about today when we're talking about the water and air principles. Let's deal with these cardinal elements, the vital forces that make up creation. Fire, cardinal element of fire, represents directed will. Energy radiating out from the center. And action. Fire represents directed will, energy radiating out from the center, and action. We have earth, physical, the force that holds the atoms together. The force that holds the atoms together, very profound. Earth represents practical applications. And earth also represents consolidation. Let's deal with the air principle. Air represents intellect. Air represents the energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. Very important, the energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. And air also represents communication. Last of the four cardinal elements we talk about is water. Water represents soul. Water represents emotions. Water represents the power of the unconscious mind. The power of the unconscious mind. Water represents connecting to the source. And water also represents reception. So again, today we're here to talk about the air and water principles. And again, we talked about earlier about the zodiac, the 12 houses of the zodiac, 3 of the different houses, each representing one of the 4 cardinal elements. For the fire, fire is represented by 3 of the zodiac houses, those being Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Earth represents Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Water represents Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And air represents Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And recognizing again, we talked about earlier, we have the 4 cardinal elements, and at the top of each of all 4 pyramids, what is there? What is common? The center star. And what does that center star represent? The divine creator. We'll call the divine creator for our purposes today, Ra. So I want to show you a little experiment of something that I know works beyond a shadow of a doubt. That we are represented today. We have fire, earth, water, and air. We have these houses of the zodiac representing each. So let's go to the fire side. And I need to know by audio signalization, is there Aries? Are you represented today?
Yes.
Leo, are you in the house? Sagittarius, let me hear you say, Sagittarius is here. Taurus, are you represented?
Yes.
Virgo, are you in the house? Yes, you are. Capricorn, let me hear you say. Capricorn, are you in the house today? That's right. Representing water, Cancer, are you here today? Scorpio, we need to hear you. Pisces, are you in the house? Representing air, Gemini, are you here? Libra, are you here? Aquarius, are you here? So we have, representing all 4 of the cardinal elements, we have representing all 12 houses of the zodiac, we have a presence here. So remember, when the 4 cardinal elements are all pointing together, when the 12 houses are all in a circle, what is at the center?
Ra.
Ra, the divine creator. So who's in the house today? Ra stands right in our midst. And when we do what we do with the presence of the divine creator in our midst, then what we do is to be taken very, very seriously. Am I correct? So there's nothing outside of this room that we are lacking for right now. Am I correct? So don't think if we come up with solutions that we can't do the solutions because every seat in the house is not full, because the representatives of the African American media are not here to cover this event as a news event. It is a very significant news event. No, we have everything we need to move forward into a bold, new dynamic to establish the new paradigm. This is what this meeting of the masters was called for.
That's right.
So we've got to stop making excuses. Today's presentation again is concentrating on the water and air principles. Your body is 70% what? Water. This planet Earth is 70% what? Water. So water should be in balance 70 to 30. Water balancing out fire. 70 to 30. This is very, very important because we have been under the influence of a fire principle domination on this planet that is wholly and completely, totally out of balance. The fire must be balanced out by an excess of water. Water is so very vital and critical important. All of you that carry your water with you everywhere you go, please hold your water up. Please hold it up. Because it is life. Water is life. You know, if you have no food or if you can't find real food, you can go without that stuff called food for days upon days. But you cannot go very long without water. Connecting to the source is very important. We've been out of balance of a fire principle, and we suffer as a consequence. The fire principle, again, I recall, is directed will. Well, we have been under the directed will of others outside of our community who are hostile to our intentions. Is that true, yes or no? They have gotten together in their cabals, in their conspiracies, in their think tanks, in their strategic organizing groups. They have gotten together in small groups of people scheming and conspiring to influence the lives of the much larger mass of people on this planet. Our greatest problem is the way we and the African seed fit within their paradigm. We have a big, big problem with that, and we must correct it. Fire out of balance. Energy radiating out from the center. Well, we know this center of this thing that has been dominating our lives to our detriment, the center of it is not in Mother Africa. The center of it is not in Nile Valley where these high science and metaphysical principles and concepts were defined. The center of it appears to be coming out of the hills and the caves of Europe. But when we can look to see who are those that are directing the social engineers, the most powerful group of social engineers, we can see that it is groups like Skull and Bones out of Yale University, John M. Olin Institute out of Harvard University, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral. We could go on and on naming. It is in our best interest to know the names of those who organize against us. So in case one day we need to have a quote-unquote redress of grievances, we know where to mail our requests. Fire out of balance. Directed will, energy radiating out from the center, and also action. They have been using the fire principle very firmly to our detriment. So how do you defeat fire? How do you balance out? I should not say defeat, because there's a balance. Conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict is a natural thing. Now, conflict not responded to in appropriate manner can be a bad thing for your side. But for the other side, they say, no. Keep responding just like you're responding. I like it when you protest. We'll sell you the airplane tickets to get to the protest. That's the way that fire, those who have been applying the fire side. So fire out of balance hurts us. How do we defeat them? How can we defeat them? You don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. That's absolutely true. Recognizing we need a preponderance of water to quench a fire. When a fire occurs to a home, firefighters have to rush out to make self-sacrifices, to put that fire out. Chances are, most times, they will put the fire out using an excess of water, more than the 70 to 30 ratio. You have to have more water than is absolutely necessary. And so we're combating the fire, the directed wheel that is injuring us. We do it with water. How do we do it with water? Let's go to the water principles and let's imagine how we can draw upon them to defeat the fire that is injuring us. Specifically, I want to say this fire that is injuring us is coming out of the quote-unquote national security establishment working for others outside of the black community, the global African community. So they have an agenda. And we have decided now that their agenda must be neutralized by our water. So water, we can tap into soul. Soul. I mean, what do they say about black people in this country? What do we always bring to the party? We bring the soul. We bring the soul with the music, am I correct? We bring the soul with the food, am I correct? In fact, the wisest of us bring the soul with the food, still leave the pig out of it. Because real soul food doesn't kill you. I'm sorry. There's a contradiction there, it's an oxymoron. We bring the soul to the party. And this is one of the ways we can organize ourselves. This is one of the ways we've always been able to organize ourselves, using our soul factor. We can do it through the music, we can do it within the religious institutions. That is a part of our soul. If the religious institutions are not serving our community and cultural needs, that's a problem of leadership. It does not condemn the existence of the religious institutions or the dominance of them within the community's lives. We built those pyramids and those temples, the greatest structures, the greatest organizing effort for building ever on this planet. We built them using the power of religious and spiritual organization. So what we have done, we can continue to do. The problem with the churches now is the leadership. We'll deal with that in a little bit. How do we defeat fire out of balance? Emotions. But the emotions must be a tool utilized by us, for our self-interest. As it is right now, it is sad about them African-American cousins of yours that they're too emotionally reactive. That every time the African-American cousins of yours seem to be getting on track, the mass media pulls out something that is emotionally reactive, and then they start buck dancing and running around in a circle, saying somebody said something nasty about Tiger Woods. So we all stand up so that the Caucasians won't be offended. When in actuality, who cares? O.J. Simpson, who cares? All of the effort and energy we give to these type of things, we've become emotionally reactive. And others outside of our community don't like us for that, even though they do everything they can to poke and prod and stimulate just that emotionally reaction. Well, we need to get the emotions on our side. And if you understand the fire and the water principle, when someone steps to you with a funky, ugly attitude, that means they're radiating from the fire principle. How do you quench them? With water. You use the emotions. If they're venting, if they're spewing, let them vent, let them spew. They probably needed a verbal enema because they're too full of caca. I mean, really, really, there's a lot of people walking around full of stinky stuff. This society itself fills you up with it every day. It fills your eyes up with, it fills your ears up with, it fills your mouth up if they can get away with it. So when they're spewing, they're not angry at you. See, that's what the thing. When people, I know, I've been talking about this corruption of the ministry quite a bit. And you know, a lot of our Christian sisters and brothers are so emotionally reactive, they won't even listen to what you're saying. They just heard you say something with T.D. Jakes' name, and you didn't say hallelujah after it, so they say you're attacking T.D. Jakes. And I say, listen back to the tape. You are imagining that I said something that never came out of my mouth. So you don't have to get into a fight with them. What you have to do is you have to use the judo principle. If they're coming at you with fire, you defeat them with water, and excess of water. You defeat fire out of balance using the power of the unconscious mind. The power of the unconscious mind. And we're recognizing also that the water principle is a feminine principle. Very, very important. Because it's terribly out of balance. Does everybody in this room know that when we begin to define the highest culture and civilization on the planet, that the omnipotent, the omnipotent presence was a feminine mother goddess? That it was the Europeans coming into dominance and defeating our original order, they substituted a paternalism for the maternal aspect. Mother is earth. Earth is mother. And water is mother. Water is the feminine. So brothers, we need to do a better job with Imbalance, I should say, of getting in contact with the feminine nature. All of us have within us the cardinal natures. So if you have a feminine nature that's out of balance, it can show up several ways. How do we defeat water? The power of the unconscious mind. The ability to go beyond someone's mere words. Words are wonderful. Syntax is wonderful. Language is wonderful. But we're also operating within the foreigner's language constructs. So the foreigners' ideologies have become pervasive within our minds. We need to do a better job of moving forward out of these Johnny-come-lately verbal constructs, verbal symbols, into the timeless ones. This is why the ancients wrote in picture symbology, because the picture symbology would be eternal. It's very important to know this. The power of the unconscious mind says, when I'm talking to you, I have to look into your eyes. And if you avoid looking in my eyes, that itself is telling me something. They say the eyes are the window to the soul. Well, the soul is the window to the cosmos. And the cosmos is eternity. The eyes are the window to the soul. The soul is the window to the cosmos. And the cosmos is eternity, infinity, the divine creator. So when I look in your eyes, I see eternity. So when I'm talking to you and you avoid looking to me, you're telling me this is not a long-term, eternal type of experience that I'm having right here with you. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? We have to recognize this is so profound. I mean, we could have just a whole set of classes on any particular thing. Here's a concrete example, practical example. When you first meet that special one, your soulmate, they might be your soulmate. The first thing you want to do is look where? Deep into their eyes. Am I correct? You look deep into their eyes. What are you looking for? You're looking for their soul, which is the window to the cosmos, which is the window to eternity. You're looking for eternity in that person's eyes. That person looks right back at you and lets you see all the way into their soul. So then you make a completion, and the pair bonding can occur after that. Now, some of us get to a situation with that person later to where we can't look into their eyes anymore. Well, now we see there's problems that are occurring. Am I correct? So if we knew how to read these symbols the way our ancients told us, this gives us a very powerful tool for keeping our relationships tight. Am I telling the truth? The eyes are the windows. So if you're with that person for a long time, may have made the babies together or practice making the babies together. See, that is an attempt. See, making the babies is not a pornographic thing. It is the continuation of life itself. Only within Western culture did procreation become degenerate. And degenerate, D away from, generate, generations, life, creation, degenerate. Does that act cause life? No, it is degenerate. How do we defeat fire out of balance? With water. Walking on water. Walking on water. Living everyday experience with the water very close. Not just in your hand. Not just in your body. But the water in your first eye, your pineal. Within your active conscious mind. Again, the power of the unconscious. That is where the power is that can defeat fire out of balance. How do we defeat fire out of balance? Using water principle, connecting to the source. Oh my goodness gracious, you Africans, or are you African Americans? Connecting to the source. Well, you have to ask the question, where is your cultural source? King James? If there are many of our people whose cultural source they claim is King James's version. His version. And so they would try and connect with the source. Well, be careful about connecting with King James. Because King James was a Greek initiate. And he liked to initiate as many little boys in the garden, them English gardens, in the Greek origins, the Greek source, as he possibly could. Be careful about allowing King James to catch you. Because here, when we're looking at this city, and I don't mean to make light of people's religion and stuff, but you're going to have to, one of the fundamental things you're going to understand this week, right here at the meeting of the Masters, is that Christianity and African cultural civilization have been hand in hand since the dawn of civilization, the Christ consciousness, but the stuff that we've been under since 1700 on this side of the waters ain't necessarily true Christianity. Connecting to the source. Well, one of the ways that I have been able to empower myself is connecting to the source. The source of my entering this planet was through my mother, her birth canal, through her womb, connecting to the source. Therefore, within the paradigm that I operate, every woman that I encounter, every female that I encounter, is a representation of my mother. And I could never disrespect my mother. I could never curse my mother. I could never allow my mother to wallow in filth and throw dirty dollar bills at her while she's doing it. So brothers, we need to come consistent here. I'm talking to the males right now. Brothers, we need to come consistent here on how are we going to deal with the woman in our presence. Water principle says connect to the source. The fire principle, action, directed will, energy radiating out from the center. We even go to one of these strip clubs, I guess. I recently just come to find out how popular this subculture of young black childbearing age men and women participating in this stripper culture. I just was shocked and surprised to really realize how far it's gone. So I've only been in one of these places one time in 1969. I was 19 years old. I didn't know no better. But recently I've been working on a documentary film, and I found out it's far worse than many of us could ever imagine. Women allow themselves to be filmed in the most disgraceful, disgusting positions that you could ever imagine, going down on each other. Men stuffing dirty money up in their private parts. Am I telling the truth? This could only go on if we were to tolerate it.
That's right.
Men, this could only be occurring to our daughters, our nieces, our cousins, our sisters, our mothers, and sometimes even our grandmothers, if we, the men, were tolerant of it. So therefore, I suggest we are no longer tolerant of it. Am I correct? See, I heard 4 brothers say yeah. And that's an indication that we're still out of balance, because the brothers just refuse to stand up and accept the responsibility that has been on the black male for every generation since the dawn of civilization. The last 2 generations, though, are into the new paradigm coming out of Europe. That anything can go, just as long as you wear a latex condom.
Look out, look out.
This sickness, this infectious disease, this cultural AIDS called Western civilization. Ugh. How do we defeat fire out of balance? Water, we use soul, we use emotions, the power of the unconscious mind, connecting to the source, and reception. Reception. This is another very important reception. Because sometimes there are people that stand before you that got a bad attitude. And they need to have a good mental and verbal enema. And they're starting to spew. And our first reaction, we've been taught to react in this culture with maladaptive or funky reactions. Our first reaction is to jump up in their face. Oh no, you did it. You don't have to go there. If you were really in control, if you had access to the tools and the powers of psychology, spirituality, and biology that your ancestors had when they defined and built the greatest culture, the greatest civilization ever on this planet, you would defeat their fire out of balance using receptivity. Saying, I may have messed up. Can you please clearly explain to me that which I did? I will listen very, very closely so that you and I can help me solve my problem. It may not be true, because you may understand they just needed an enema, they just needed a dispute, but the way you worded the reaction, they're going to walk away saying, boy, I sure enjoyed talking to that person. Whereas they came into the conversation expecting to butt heads with you, because we, people of African descent, are always looking for another excuse not to cooperate with each other. So we go into relationships expecting, anticipating, and subconsciously promoting those divisive issues. We come into a room, somebody saying, we're all gathered, but where's Willie Lynch? Someone go out and make sure that Willie can find the building. We have a panel discussion today. Make sure, oh no, don't sit in that seat down at the end. That's reserved for Willie Lynch. We give life to that old guy. I almost went Coakley on you, though. I'm not going to go Coakley today. We love the brother. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, we got his back. Fire out of balance. So we have now understood we can walk on water. That's what our ancients were talking about. The Europeans, they distorted it because they wanted you to think you could never do it. That's why they said the only one that could do it, well, you got to have blonde hair, blue eyes, has to be a guy, and he has to have that kind of like graceful feminine look about himself, so we dress him in long white robes, make him look like Michelangelo's uncle. He's the only one that can walk on water. No. Any one of us, on any given day, can walk on water. And all of those you encounter will know that there is something very powerful and special about you. Tell them, I'm walking on water. See, people don't, when I say I will teach you in the next half hour to walk on water, they say, what? What? Walk on water? What do you mean? Do you mean I'm telling to teach you to walk on water. Be receptive. Your ancients knew this. They left it in the record with the symbols. Now we understand why it is so very, very important that we go forward into our past and reclaim all of those things that have been lost so that we can move into the future. The word is called Sankofa. It is not taboo to return to the past, to retrieve those things that have been lost. We lost our ability to see. And our ability to hear is being seriously impacted by this crap we're listening to. Today, again, we're talking about how to walk on water. Now let's deal with walking on air. Because we're living in a culture and a society that's out of balance. It's out of balance. There's nothing within that fire principle that wasn't something that we could and would use, but we are in a reactive mode because this foul, decadent civilization is imposing things on us.
Come on, brother. Right.
So we have an imbalance also with the earth principle. Let me repeat again the earth principle. Physical. Force that holds the atoms together. Practical applications and consolidation. Well, but wait a minute, conscious Rasta. All of those things we can feel very good about. Yes, we can, absolutely. But again, we are out of balance, and hence we suffer. When we talk about this earth principle, the physical is the first one to talk about, the physical, out of balance. Well, we look around, we see so much obsession with the physical. People pumping up, putting makeup on, weaving all kinds of Korean-made plastic all into their hair. The physical, obsession with the physical of the body, the physical beauty. Obsessed with the physical, jewelry and all kinds of things. Obsessed, and not dealing with that which is eternal, ethereal, transcendental. So the physical is out of balance. The physical is out of balance. You can go and see how obsessed we are with materialism, with material things. As if those things would give us the dignity and self-esteem and self-worth that would move us forward into a bold, new, operational paradigm. As if a navigator is going to get you more power than the one you bought last year, which was 400 pounds lighter weight than that. And then a year later, 2 years later, when the navigator doesn't give you that power, which the commercial said was going to give you, you're going to look around for another car unless you come out of an imbalance of that earth principle and deal with the one that balances out, the opposite being air. Physical. Earth is the force that holds the atoms together, where we are all like atoms, like fingers on a hand. We are all like atoms, and we are held together. Problem is, too many of us are held together in stuff that is dysfunctional, that is set up by others who do not have our self-interest, and we're bound together in low-order modalities. Am I correct? We talked earlier about the evolution of this new porno culture within the young childbearing age black youth. If you go to one of those clubs, you will see a lot of young brothers, and you will see also a group of young sisters. The brothers are held together, but they're held together in this doggish, thuggish, low-order, snake-like behavior. And the women are held together because they have to hold together to defend themselves against this foulness that the men are bringing to them. But the women are held together in something that's as ratty, as nasty, and as dirty, and as funky as what the men are held together by. The women, in holding their end of it together, are even going into their own advanced stages of sexual degradation. Holding themselves together. Well, this is the thing we girls do for each other. The guys aren't invited to this one. You know what I'm talking about. So we're held together in low-order modalities. The earth principle is out of balance. Earth, practical applications. Wait a minute, conscious Rasta. Now, what do you mean by practical applications? It's always good. I will show you how practical applications not in balance with the air principle works against you. It is practical to get up every morning at 6:30, to get on the freeway by 7, to get to that job, to be there 40 hours a week, wonderfully reliable for a missile company, or a chemical factory, or for somebody that degrades people using mass media. It's practical for, well, I have to have a job, I have to pay the bills. It's practical for one to do that, but the end product, if the end product of your practical commitment is destruction to society, destruction to the environment, destruction to your extended family, then it's not in your group self-interest or even personal self-interest to continue that practical application. I mean, if it's a practical application that you get up every day, reliably go to work for Clorox Company, and they dump all of these, or DuPont, or Monsanto, or these other chemical companies that dump all of these pollutants and toxins and pesticides onto this planet, it is against your self-interest to be practical there. Am I correct? Am I correct? So therefore we have that earth principle is out of balance. It's not balanced by air. The earth principle, consolidation. Consolidation. Well, that's a good thing. But it out of balance has us trying to consolidate all the money we can get by any means necessary, including selling our people out, including our childbearing age women stuffing dirty dollar bills up into their private parts. Consolidation. Consolidation might be your garage with all of that stuff consolidated in it. You know, a lot of us keep consolidating and consolidating. Some of us still got like TVs that are like 20 years old with it. We used to use the pliers on and stuff. Well, I know one day I'm going to need that TV again, so we put it in the garage and we consolidate. If you go in the meat of our garage, it's been consolidated far too long. We need to have some practical application of the air principle and put some air on some of that stuff piling up in our garage. So how do we defeat the earth principle out of balance? How do we balance it out? I know the word defeat may not even be appropriate, because bringing them into harmony and symbiosis, working, is not a matter of defeating, it's just balancing it. How do we balance out earth principle out of balance, which comes so much to dominate our lives? Well, the air principle is made up of intellect, the energy that shapes the pattern of things to come, and communication. Very, very important. Intellect. Well, if we know that the earth principle out of balance has us obsessed with the physical, well, intellect says you can't treat your body like that. That's just not an intelligent choice. Intellect would say, why do you have to pump up and pump up? Intellect would say, what is it putting that tattoo on your body's going to do for you? Why don't you tattoo yourself on your first eye? Tattoo yourself in your intellect. You know, this city, Atlanta, I was shocked to find out, to really realize that the young people in this city are tattooing themselves at perhaps the highest rate of any other city in the country. Atlanta. May have something to do with the CDC being here. There's a whole lot of stuff have to do with the CDC being here. The tattoos. I've been investigating these tattoos for a couple of years, and when I see people with tattoos, I always ask them, mind if I ask, what does that mean? And I'm going to have to publish a book of the reactions that I get, because some of them don't have a clue. Some are you walking around tattooing Japanese characters, Japanese language on themselves. Well, I studied Japanese, and I have a rude surprise. For those of you who have that Japanese tattoo, the Japanese like to cuss, but they don't do so out in the open, so they write it down. So I can't really use this language here today, but I saw the tattoos, and it means I'm a dumb-ass MF. But it's written in Japanese characters, so it looks real good on the videos. Earth is out of balance. The force that holds the atoms together. Well, we are being held together many times at these JOBs. that do not serve our community's long-term self-interest. Right now, I'm attempting to assemble a group of new high-tech technology people to put together a technology company. And let me tell you, there's a lot of black people who are masters of the new information technologies, the softwares and the hardwares. There's a whole bunch of them. Only problem is, none of them want to come to work for our side. Why? Because we would rather work for the major corporations. They're bound together. They're atoms held together outside of our community. And we can do better than that. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, we can do better than that. Air, the energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. If you're working for a corporation that is destructive to the environment, destructive to society, then an intellectual position would have you know that you giving your life to this is going to make it worse for your children. So when we're talking about balancing out earth out of balance, we're going to air, we're going to use energy. Energy, that's the fire. That's directed will. Energy, that's action, that's forward motion, that's you doing something. The energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. That is why we are gathered here at the gathering of the masters. We are the ones to define. It will take place right here in Atlanta. I still keep telling people about Atlanta. I don't think everyone really realizes the potentiality of this city. Because if they did realize the potential of this city, they'd stop spending the money on trying to build the highest stairway to heaven and start spending the money on trying to capture the real estate within the 285 perimeter, consolidate that, and then run the 5 southern state nation of whatever we decide to call it from Atlanta. But we in Atlanta have so many excuses for why we don't do what is required of us. Air is intellect, the energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. Well, I've seen very, very clearly that the pattern of shape, or the pattern of things to come, according to the paradigm that we're on, is further degradation, further insult of us by this mass media, who will continue to focus on peripheral issues that are not about the heart of our empowerment, but will focus on emotionally reactive issues for us to deal with. And even when we do come up with some paradigms that are working in our own self-interest, the mass media will find a way to somehow turn our attention from the productive to the destructive. Air is about communication. Pattern of shapes of things to come and communication. You know we're talking about the new information age. We are in an information age. Those with access to information are able to consolidate that into power. Those who either do not access information in a timely basis or misuse it when they do get it, they will be the victims of those who know how to use it. We have in our midst, and he's going to be speaking a little bit later, a brother by the name of Laila O. Africa, who has, for decades, been assembling information in a manner that applied over any group that would take that information seriously and apply it, that would allow us as a group to say goodbye to the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, am I telling the truth? Am I telling you the truth? The man is in our midst. Yet, they dismiss his brilliance. They dismiss his research, and they line up in the corridors of these killing zones they call hospitals. Some of our quote-unquote leadership clamoring because they say we can't afford the drugs. Why would we spend our money on poisonous, toxic chemotherapies, killing ourselves, speeding up the pace of the degradation of this beautiful temple that our divine creator willed to us? Why? It's because we have access to the wrong information, and we do not have appropriate access to the right information. Had we listened to this brother Africa, by the early, mid-1980s, AIDS would have been over in the black community. But what are they saying right now? AIDS is just overwhelming the black childbearing age population. They're all getting it. Africa just rampant with AIDS. You haven't read Laila's work. You haven't read my work. I have 3 books on it saying it's a hoax. Hoax. So I'm tired of even these people who call ourselves our advanced thinkers in our leadership saying, well, but AIDS is such a big problem in our community. No, it's a lie! How can you call yourself brilliant? How can you call yourself studied with degrees and PhDs and masters and you don't even know what's there, has been there all the time for you to read? It is a lie. It is one of a number of lies that are perpetuated by a preponderance of mass media saturation. Johns Hopkins University said it is thus, and I have to paraphrase it. No, let me give you the exact reference. Very quickly. Johns Hopkins University, who wrote the United States Psychological Warfare Program in 1957, said this, and I quote from them verbatim: if you give a man the correct information for 7 years, he may believe the incorrect information on the first day of the 8th year when it is necessary from your point of view that he should do so. Your first job is to build the credibility and authenticity of your propaganda and persuade the enemy to trust you, although you are his enemy. And they have put that up into an operational program. They call it entertainment. To persuade the enemy to trust you, although you are his enemy. To even have these Negroes out here clamoring, saying, we need to see more of our people in prime time television. We need more Wayans brothers. We need more Bryant Gumbel. We need more Moesha. No, we don't need more Urkels. We don't need more of this degradation and debasement in the mass media. What we need is to get on the course of history. We need a Sankofa. Now, if ABC, CBS, NBC, or the Fox, Rupert Murdoch, wants to put out a TV program, a serious program, we don't need to laugh, called Sankofa, Return to the Past to Reclaim Your Future, well, you know, I'll volunteer my services for that program. But if they want to put out a program called Living Single, showing your childbearing age young people together, season after season after season, all of these romantic and sexual encounters, and no children? Perpetually living single? No, we don't need further degradation and debasement. What we need is the air principle to be put into place so we can balance out the earth principle out of balance. And so with air, we're going to move forward to intellect. How do we do that? Well, the first things we do to move forward firmly into intellect, well, the first thing we do is turn the damn television off. Turn it off with a vengeance. Turn it off from like the 4th story of your apartment building, out the window. The only way a television can work for you is if you have a media production capability. Now, we are here today in front of all these video cameras. I suggest that these video cameras are part of the paradigm that shaped the pattern of things to come. And with the new digital revolution, the new technology revolution, there's much that we can do with these digital video cameras. Digitize a signal, put it into a computer, put that on a broadband or on CD-ROM, and distribute it to all aspects of our community so that after listening to Brother Laila Africa and the conscious Rasta, our people will understand that yes, this thing called HIV and AIDS is a hoax. We're out of that now. No more HIV testing, no more AIDS chemotherapies, and that includes the new one, the cheap one. What's it called? Hydroxyurea? Hydroxyurea, that's scientific language. Most people call it piss. But they sell it to black people. But don't worry, it's only $30 a month. You can afford it. intellect, study groups, study, books, read books. It's a good idea. The more books that you read, the more you develop your capability and competence to weave your way through that myriad of complex decisions that you have to make every day of your life. Life is incredibly complex, and we're living in the most complex society that has been defined, I should say, since we ruled the world. Because let's be very, very clear, just when you look at the language, if you look at the syntax and the word pictography in the so-called hieroglyphics and the way that we wrote, it was obvious that the people and the society was far more complex than it is today. But the thing is that this complex society is dangerous. Whereas that complex society was challenging, but it was embracing and supportive. But this complex society is dangerous. So the consequence of your making poor decisions on a daily basis can cause you your life. Just entering traffic, if you make poor decisions, can cause you and your children their lives. Am I telling the truth? Yes, I am. So the air principle, we're walking on air. We're using intellect. We're developing intellect. We're respecting intellect. It's in the books. That's why we write the books. We write. You know me. I'm busy. I have 18 books published in a 4-year period. The first of 4 books have just come out. My new book. Dick Gregory says you don't spend enough time promoting your books. Let me take a brief commercial break. My new book is called The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order. Now, according to the way I wrote this book, should those within our communities who are the leadership or are moving to persons or places of leadership, and I suggest that all of us are leaders of our community, if we would then get a book like this and come into a synchronicity, we should then be able to move forward into an African global order. The problem is, this is book number 18. I'm still waiting for the order to come from the first book called AIDS Exposed. 4 years after that book, I still talk to the majority, the overwhelming majority of our people about HIV and AIDS, and they don't have a clue about the scientific research behind it. They don't have a clue. All they know is that the white folks got me scared. I'm looking around for a rubber. And that is race suicide. So, yeah, you do want my new book, but I really do want you to understand the first of the 18 books. All 18 books were about power. Book number 2 was called Population War, Report from the Front Line, and our people still don't understand we are at a population war. The others know it. I saw an article on the front page of the LA Times this past Sunday, the LA Crimes, we call it. The article, it wasn't on the front page, it was in the front section, talking about Spain and their fertility rate at 1.07. And at that fertility rate, in 4 generations, Spain will be a black country again. Because in 4 generations, 32 great-grandparents will have produced less than 2 great-grandchildren. 32 producing less than 2, that's a pyramid inverted. We're starting to see the pattern of things to come. That's what people like us do. We are the futurologists. This is why we study. We are masterful studies. The best of our leaders are masterful students first. But no, we have been taught by this mass media to disrespect those who have educated themselves from the grassroots university and to respect those preachers, the men of the cloth. And you know, they even got us calling them reverend, as if we revere them. Reverend standing up on the podium can barely talk. Say, will you read that next verse back there? Why don't you read it? We have our brother Khalid, who should be the respected leader for our people. He showed the commitment necessary, unflexible. You know, this is not the kind of brother that goes behind the closed doors and cuts a distinct deal and comes out and tells us a different story. And the brother is qualified. He's trained himself. We need to go forward with the intellect. We need to go forward with the energy, meaning action, energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. We need to go forward with communication. And you know, that's one of our biggest problems, is the lack of communication. We can't even look in each other's eyes anymore, so you really can't communicate on that level that you used to communicate at when you ran the planet, unless you can look in each other's eyes again. And within this complex society with so many people, and people so aggressive and hostile to each other, we can understand why a lot of people avoid eye contact. But let me tell you, that's where the power is. That's where the overstanding is. That is where the transcendence is. If you're involved in an argument or a debate with someone, stand there and look them directly into the eye, and also be receptive. Communicate and get over the problem. We can drive a stake in the heart of that undead Willie Lynch. And we need to kill Willie Lynch for all time. You know, Willie Lynch actually never really did exist. The Willie Lynch letter was actually what is called black propaganda or yellow journalism. It's where you take real constructs, but you construct them in a fictional sense. Willie Lynch, the Willie Lynch letter, I've examined that letter in detail, and the letter was probably written, according to my examination, by a black male sometime during the late 60s or early 70s. Just the language and the constructs itself lets me know that it's got a timeliness. I mean, Willie Lynch talking about traveling about the South, but in 1712 there was no notion of the South. There were only 13 colonies. And he's coming from the Caribbean up there. Why is he going to be talking about traveling about the South? Maybe he's traveling about the North. And other things in there. But the problem is that the Willie Lynch concept, the Willie Lynch paradigm is all too alive. Well, we can kill Willie Lynch dead, but we're going to have to improve our ability to communicate. The eyes are the window to the soul is the window to, and the cosmos is eternity. I'm telling the truth. That is a very real, very profound trilogy. We're walking on water. We're walking on air. Now we know what King James's version couldn't even have come close to instructing us in. Why? Because we bypassed King James and his boyfriends. We bypassed those Germans that taught King James. And they had to teach King James something. We bypassed those Romans who taught those Germans, the ones they called barbarians, and savages. We bypassed the Greeks who taught the Romans, who said, please teach the Romans something. These backwards people. We're bypassing the Greeks. Please be careful bypassing the Greeks. They like to sneak up behind you, spank you on the boo-boo, so you can get initiated into their order. That's not an intellectual position. We don't have to go there. I think it's kind of obvious. No, we do have to go there because, you know, it's still being perpetuated. It's getting worse and worse. I moved all the way from LA to Atlanta. I picked this city for two reasons. One, this city has the highest percentage of black youth aged 15 to 30 of all the major cities inside this country. Atlanta does. So we had the thing that we have to do with the youth, because many of their parents were about ready to write them off. We're going to find a way to take more of their parents' money so we can use that money to build something real for the youth. Because if we don't take more of their parents' money, I fear that they're going to continue to spend it on this conspicuous consumption thing. But we have to build it for the youth. The other reason I moved to Atlanta was for that university center, which traditionally has been the single greatest location of where African leadership or black leadership in this country could, would, and should have been developed. But the problem is, you go over there now, and if you look at the pattern of things to come, one might make the assumption that we're going to be living in a transgender nation. For some of us, that's unacceptable. For some of us, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. And the Greek societies are perpetuating it. Got these guys out here flip dancing and doing their little rockette thing. Hey, listen, your ancestors did not do all that suffering just so you can go to Morehouse and become a rockette. Am I telling the truth?
Yes.
See, he doesn't get quiet there. You start touching on some of them sensitive topics, people get quiet, don't they, Brother Glenn? Am I telling the truth, yes or no? Yes. All right, you know, I was in the music business for 28 years. You got to yell at me, I'm half deaf. We're walking on water to defeat fire out of balance. Fire out of balance will be brought into balance, and it will be within an order that we have shaped using the air principle. Again, I personally think this is all so very practical. Now, most of the times when you see me stand up here, you know, you see me stand up here with notes and notes and pages and pages and pages, and people said, man, that's kind of like overwhelming. Well, I say, well, that's why I put it on the videos, so you can pace yourself at it. But today, I wanted to go this way, because I want to make this as practical as possible. If you don't take the information that you're going to get here at the gathering of the masters and make it practical, then maybe you have wasted your money. But it's better that you would have wasted your money here than down at the Navigator store, or down at the pizza parlor, or down at the nudie bar, or at the Korean-known hair, nail, and whatever it is fake shop. I mean, I tell you, others outside of our community have been using these cardinal elements to their own self-interests. The Koreans had to have been understanding of the air and water principles to realize it would have been intelligent for them to scratch together their meager savings, move all the way to America, into the inner cities with a small investment, and open up a very, very lucrative business, selling us fake things. They had to have been in an intellectual position. They said, we're shaping the pattern of things to come. But personally, it's time that we now get into position. So we are dealing with soul. Our soul. The commonality of soul. And we're committing, and mark my words on this, we're committing to putting the soul back in black music. That's going to be warfare. Because as it is right now, black music is created by our people, but it's out of our control. It is in the control of the hands of these Kabbalists who use the creativity emerging from our youth to empower and enrich themselves, making billions of dollars. They chew our young people up like chewing gum and then spit them on the sidewalk for you and I to come and get that gum stuck to our shoe. We need to go to war. We need to put soul back in soul music. We need to get our childbearing age population black on track, black on course. We need the families that they would produce. A woman who is a stripper, stuffing dirty dollar bills into her private parts, is not going to be producing children for our future. So brothers, we need to get together and do a better job of defending the self-interest of our childbearing age women. Am I telling the truth, brothers?
Yes.
Sisters, was that an appropriate response for this issue? We need to, sisters, we appreciate you. We thank you for having been the pillar, the backbone, the black bone, holding our community together while we brothers were looking for ourselves. But let me tell you, sisters, it's time now that you hold these men responsible. All of us responsible. We need to have sisters giving away awards for the men who sell out the community. Sisters get together and give awards to people like Ice Cube. Ice Cube, a man who showed all the dynamic potentiality of any of those members of the so-called hip-hop rap generation. Then comes up with first Dangerous Ground. He talked about her, called her the cave bitch in one of his songs. Then he makes his first movie and makes her co-star. Then he comes up with a movie for you, black woman, called what? Players Club. Sowing the seeds for this whole new culture of degradation of childbearing age women in these strip joints and these nudie bars. It's far, again, I'd say it's far worse than you could ever imagine. Our beautiful young women moving out to Los Angeles to become a part of the movie industry. Well, there's only 1,000 positions left open for black women. Probably less than that. And most of them are just extras. So all of these women coming, they say, well, where am I going to find a gig? They say, well, you can do the videos. And so they do the videos. And the videos are all now about low-order, softcore pornography. That's what gets released publicly. What they don't tell you is when they shoot that one for public release, they also shoot a second video for underground release. And some of the women say, well, I'm not going to do that. That's why about half of the women you see in the rap videos are actually strippers, dancers, and prostitutes. They will do what the other half will do. So finally, the other half, who had some sort of morals and values, even though moving to Hollywood has already tested those, they see the other half of the women doing this and becoming compensated to a high level and degree. So they're then further corrupted. We are losing control over our childbearing age population. So we need to come with soul. We need to put soul back in. We need to get this emotional thing under control. The emotions should be working for us. At this particular point in our revolutions, they're working against us. We need to tap into the power of the unconscious mind. How do we do that? We've got to study the mind sciences. So many of our people talk about Pavlov's dogs, which went deep into the unconscious mind and that thing called the conditioned reflex and how that takes place in that environment. Everybody talking about Pavlov's dogs, but I know for a fact the overwhelming majority of people talking about Pavlov have never read any of it. We need to tap into connecting to the source. The source is the womb. We need to connect to the source. Some of us brothers are so out of balance, we need to connect to the womb. And I'm not just talking about a lewd connection. No, we need to connect down into the depth of femininity, to the womb. We need to also be receptive as a people, but we have to be careful about this receptivity. We have to filter our receptivity with the air principle of intellect, because if you are receptive without being intellectual, you might be listening to Art Bell and quoting Art Bell. You know what they did with us with that Y2K computer crisis. That was not an intellectual position that our community took. Now, insofar as being prepared for social disruption and crises, well, we who live or have been living in California, we live in an earthquake zone. You always have food and water around, period. And that's a good thing. But that whole Y2K computer crisis showed the lack of intellect that our community's leadership had gotten to, leaving us vulnerable to anything. And as soon as that one is done, well, then they say, well, May 5th, the planet's going to flip upside down. And others coming along telling us our problem is not white supremacy. Our problem is not this Western cultural decadence and degradation. Our problem is lizard people from the other side of the universe.
All right. Exposed.
That is not an intellectual position.
Pull the cover off.
And anytime that these British agents, intelligence agents, such as David Icke, these American intelligence agents such as William Cooper, A. Ralph Epperson, Anthony Hilder, anytime they come along and tell you that your problem is not the dominance of white supremacy over you, your problem is lizard people from the other side of the galaxy, your error principles should have filtered it out and says, doesn't seem like a very intellectual position. Because your intellectual position has evidence, hardcore, provable evidence that your biggest problem is the dominance of Western cultural supremacy over you. White supremacy. Am I telling the truth, yes or no?
Yes.
And there's not really much you could do about lizard people from the other side of the galaxy anyways. But there is something you can do about the dominance of Western culture over your life. We need to, and listen, I know it's tough, but hey, this is in-house. Lock the doors. This is my black family. If we got problems in our community, we work them out by being in the room together and bringing them up. Am I telling the truth?
Yes.
So we need to put the filters on. Some of the people who have been standing on this side of the podium have been telling us things that have been terribly unuseful.
That's right. That's right.
Brother Khalid says that's right. And he and I have talked to this outside. All of that is over. It's done. I make my vow, and you can hold me to it. If I'm sitting in a room, and I see some of these respected ones, and there are many of them, and they are respected. We love them. They're in the room with us. But if they're putting out information that is false, that is not useful, that's distracting from the real issues that we have to deal with, I, for one, am now going to start standing up, holding up my hand, saying, brother, sister, why have you got to go there?
That's right.
Our people need real food.
That's right.
I heard one of them, and I'm not going to mention his name, but if he says that here at this conference, I'm going to stand up and check him.
I am too.
Saying that, well, using the medical physical principles, when the brother got hungry, couldn't find no food, he went down on his woman and got all the nourishment he needed.
Ah!
Hell no!
Hell no.
Hell no!
Hell no. God damn it.
We refuse to tolerate that anymore. Again, this is in-house. We're going to kill Willie Lynch dead. But I'm no longer going to sit and quietly tolerate these African-American leaders talking about how AIDS, we need to fight back against AIDS. And I'm no longer going to tolerate them telling us we all need to go get a part of that census. You don't even have a concept of what population war is about if you would volunteer to give your enemy bullets for their guns. When the Census Department comes to my house, I'm going to fill it out. I'm going to say, my name is Jose Alvarez. My wife, Maria Guadalupe Lupita Maria. We have 7 children. Jose, Jesus, Maria, Salvador, Isabel. And my wife's sister, she lives with us too. She has 3 babies and 1 on the way. And her husband is still in Mexico. That's how I'm going to fill it out. The census report's going to come back from my household saying, damn, there's 12 Mexicans in that house. Let's stop working so hard on the blacks. Let's work on the Mexicans. But if you tell them we're growing, guess what they're going to do? They say, well, we got to step up the Global 2000 program. These African American, they say, well, it's going to mean more money for our community. There's already money in our community. There is already a lot of, there's too much money in our community. You can tell by the way our people are spending it. There's too much money. 500 billion. And the quality of poor leadership has never came to the community and said, well, wait a minute, this 500 billion, according to the modern laws of economics, we could have our own strategy. The Black National Bank, we could do a thing called fractional lending and show us how the 500 billion is really $5 trillion. We could renegotiate every black outstanding loan and debt within 365 days. But no, that leadership knows if they come forward talking real economics as opposed to religious fervor-based economics, that they will be dead. Because real economics says we withdraw our money from their banks and put it in our bank, capitalize it, renegotiate all of that loans, and start building a nation. Water, we're walking on water. Air, we're walking on air. We're flying on air. With intellect, with the energy. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Energy is an action word. Action, concrete actions. We have to ask the question as individuals and as groups, what the hell are we doing? Getting together to talk and talk and talk, calling in talk, radio programs where it's just talk and not solutions, we know that's a persistence of problem. The energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. If you're ready to go there, I got your back. You got with me. If you're going to be in Atlanta, I want you to be working with the conscious Rasta. I work with cultural communications and serious books. I work with all of those progressive, active communities here in this city and any other city that I would be in. We work with each other. Our problem is that you go to these different meetings with these different groups and you see the same 5 to 10 people. Many of you I'm seeing today for the first time since I've been in this city for 6 months. Well, I think maybe that might be a problem because I have been so busy. So how can we be so busy in this city and we're seeing you now for the first time? We got to do a better job. Communication, last point. Walking on water, walking on air, communication. We have to improve communication. We know now, had we been able to go back, we would have consolidated FM radio stations back in the 70s when anybody could get on radio, and we would have held on to every one of them and not sold any one of them. What was it? Barry Gordy Jr. sells Motown for $60 million. Motown was worth billions. It should have held on to it. Now we know. But now we see the new information technologies with these computers, these laptops, with broadband, with wireless, all of this coming into place. 1 year from now, there will be 100,000 television stations. They will be clamoring for content. And they always know that black people are the creative ones in society when it comes to entertainment and holding people's attention. Who of us are bold enough, determined enough to get together right now to pool our money and form content companies? We've talked about this. So today I'm trying to give you practical applications. Much of what we talked about today, we have concrete strategies and plans for in the road to power. We've got time for Q&A, and I'm hoping that you heard something very practical in what I said about applying the water and the air principles to balance out the imbalances of the fire and the earth principles. So at this particular point, those of you who have questions, I guess we're going to line up here at the microphone. We do welcome your comments and your questions. Please don't make any speeches. Wait until your turn on the lecture podium comes up. But the thing is about, we have to consolidate practicalities. Don't let the meeting of the masters just become entertainment for you. That's defeating the purpose of why Kevin and Delbra and everybody else over at Serious Books and Cultural Communications, that's defeating the purpose of why they called this conference. They called this conference Meeting of the Masters so that we can implement a new paradigm shift for our people. We don't need masses of people to do this. All we need is a commitment, and we need energy to go out to back up the commitment to create real associations. The associations will in turn form organizations, and the organizations will gather resources to build infrastructure and real hard physical structures of change. It's about transformation. And we are the people to do it. If not we, then who? Who is more competent and capable of making this change than we? Am I harping, am I drilling the point in too much? It's about action. It's about consolidation. If the brother writes 18 books, and the books are all about transforming our people from being the victims into the empowered, from being those reacting to what others have directed to being the ones that direct it and make the masses of people react to our program, then why don't our people read the books? 4 years ago, myself and others before me who were my teachers told you, you don't have to have AIDS. You don't have to even believe in it. You don't have to take an HIV test. HIV means nothing at all to me. It means nothing at all to me. But what does mean something to me is the quality of our community, the quality of state of existence with our community. So do we have any questions or comments? We can see brother coming forward. Thank you for coming forward. I thought I was going to have to ask my own self questions.
How you doing, bro?
Greetings, we black and we shine.
How's everybody doing? Okay. I wanted to ask you a question about practicality, in regards to practicality. Because when I hear most brothers, where I'm from, we're from Tallahassee, came up to State of Legend series. But in regards to practicality, when we're making our revolution practical, it seems as if in dealing with practicality, it will make it more settled. And what I'm saying is that, for instance, in building physical structures, is definitely we need physical structures to solidify our revolutionary concepts. But being that in our revolution, everything that we are around has to come down, it seems as if practicality, making things practical, enables us to live in harmony with that which has to be destroyed. You understand what I'm saying? So
I thought I heard two clashing ideas there. Living in harmony with something.
That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
That is a clash in the idea of being practical and being revolutionary, because revolution isn't practical. Is a transitionary period. So in being practical and being revolutionary, it seems as if being practical would basically dilute revolution, because you start to build things based upon practicality and when it's all got to go.
Very good point. Very good point. Brother made reference in a practical sense to the exact same points that I was making. What we are under dominance now is an imbalance of the earth principle. And again, that imbalance of the earth principle, we talked about the force that holds the atoms together and practical applications. So the force holding the atoms together, the atoms of our community are being held together by certain forces. One of those forces being the schools system. One of those first forces being the network of churches as they are established. The community is held together also by our participation in the workforce. But guess what? In all three of those aspects, we're in need of the air principle, some revolution. The schools are there holding our children together. But what is it about the schools that we have a problem with? False teachings, the miseducation, the lack of ability of them to properly teach our children for our own cultural relevance. So the schools are holding us together, but they're holding us together in something dysfunctional, debasing, degraded. So we need some revolution. And I wholeheartedly agree, brother. And the revolution is the air principle. The air principle, and you tell me, is this a description of revolution? The energy that shapes the pattern of things to come. Is that revolution, yes or no? Is that revolution, yes or no? The energy that shapes the pattern of things to come, that's revolution. So we're talking about applying the air principle to the schools. We need to put enough sufficient energy in to reshape the schools. That will come from the parents all getting together, putting in some work. Let me tell you, even the schools in the most socially, where the resources have been withheld within a society, I almost said deprived, but you know, I don't necessarily consider being in an economically poor area to be deprived. Sometimes you can go out to the suburbs where they have economic excess and they're deprived. But we need a revolution. We need a revolution with the churches. The churches are holding our people together. It's not a bad thing, except for what are they being held into? Emotionalism, irrationalism, otherworldliness, giving their money away and getting nothing of lasting value back in return. So we need some revolution down in College Park at the World Money Changers Ministry. We needed some revolution out there in Lithonia, where Bishop Eddie Long is trying to construct a $50 million stairway to heaven. And he's going to reserve, of course, the penthouse for himself. We need some revolution within these institutions. We need some revolution on the JOB. You can have a revolution on your job on Monday. Go back, and if your name is Bobby Miller, tell him I'm sorry I changed my name over the weekend. Realizing I had to have some cultural indigenization. I had to move black into my own past to reclaim those things which had been lost. My name is not Toby. My name is Utukente. So go back to your job. Try and experiment to see how much Peggy and Billy really, really like you. Go back to your job and say, no, my name is not Tom anymore. I changed my name. I have an African cultural name now. My name is Amwana Kick Booty. Go there and find out what they really think about you. They may do for you what they did for me, to which I went back and thanked them later. In 1977, I had the wonderful privilege of being fired by a white corporation. Wonderful privilege. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. The day that the boss called me into his office and said, close the door behind you. I hope that you get to experience that as soon as possible. It's a wonderful feeling, especially if you don't lose your confidence, if you don't lose your sense of self-motivation and direction, if you don't lose your own air and water principles, then you will maybe enjoy it and realize that they did the best thing that could possibly ever been done for you, is tell you unqualifiedly that you are no longer competent to work for white supremacy. So brother, your point is very well taken. And I suggest it is the air principle, intellect, and the pattern of shapes of things to come in communication are revolutionary modalities, and we should go there. Very, very firmly. Yes, my beloved sister.
Peace and love, brother. How you
Greetings. Haven't seen you for some time.
doing?
You look just as wonderful, perhaps even better than last time.
Well, thank you, thank you. But, brother, okay. Now, look around and all the empty seats that we have here. It's amazing to see the same people, the same faces over and over again, and speaking such powerful words. But the reality is that people are in their comfort zone, and to shake them up, everybody feels like they're helpless, they have no power. And it's just real frustrating to hear the words and not see the action. And joining groups and going to meetings and hearing the lectures, and it's the same group of people that I call lecture junkies. They go around and then they leave and they've gotten their high and there's nothing done. So something has to be done to move people out of that comfort zone. There just really is not enough people that are upset about what's going on. There's not enough people that even are aware of what's going on. This small group of people, you go and you talk to people and they are shut down. I mean, you know, it's like, what are you talking about? That's not my reality. They don't even know what's really going on around. So something has to be done to just shake people up out of that comfort zone and get some things happening, because I'm just guilty of being busy, trying to survive, trying to do this, attempt to do that, but we've got to get our priorities in order and really start making some changes. And I would like for you to, address that issue of shaking people up out of that comfort zone.
You made some very, very strong points. When it comes to a matter of shaking people up, well, that is the fire principle. Shaking people up, directed will. Meaning, you have decided something, you have willed something, and then you direct it. Energy radiating out from the center, action. So shaking people up is actually going on. Our people are being shaken up right now by this dysfunctional culture. The thing is that some of us kind of welcome much of this dysfunctionality of Western civilization, we kind of welcome the chaos because out of the chaos, we will reshape a new order. And you know, many of our people are not going to come here until their life crises become unmanageable and old Reverend Eat-em-up can't do nothing for them anymore. You know, it's like with the issue of cancer. They won't come to a Dr. Goss, a Dr. Sadie, a Dr. Africa, so many of our other brilliant herbal healers, they won't come to them until the chemotherapies and the radiation and everything else has failed. So we sometimes, and especially because of our reservation of resources, we sometimes have to wait until they're prepared to come to us. But the key about it is that we've got to have some structural in place to welcome them and embrace them when they do come. And this is one of the things, one of the reasons that we have committed so much to developing an African-centered communications platform. We have so many of our talented people in media, but we need to take it to higher and higher levels. It's like climbing stairs. You get firmly on one stair, then you lift your leg to go to the next stair. And this is, I'm convinced, the next phase of our evolution. Because, sister, I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt, had we had access to the news, mass media, and TV shows as they are around Atlanta, this week, they'd be lined up down the block. If you'd gone on national or local news media and said that today, O.J. Simpson, Mike Tyson, Dennis Rodman, and Michael Jackson are all going to tongue kiss each other for 20 minutes, they would have been lined up down the road. If BET itself, and I'm not going to go Coakley on you, but I could go there when I talk about them. If BET itself had committed to supporting conferences like the Gathering of the Masters and supporting real African intellectuals such as Laila African, Khalid Muhammad, Conscious Rasta, and so many others, as opposed to Tavis Smiley. If they had decided to support it, we know that every seat would have been full. So we've got to do a better job of going to find our people where they are. And this is something that, to find our people where they are, because so many of our people are in these dysfunctional zones, some of our methodologies for finding them are going to look kind of funny when you first see it. A brother I know is producing a documentary film about to come out called Mind, Booty, and Soul. It's a wonderful, wonderful documentary, transformational. But if you were to just see the first 5 or 10 minutes of it, you might think it's softcore pornography. Because he's showing our people where they are before he shows you the transformation. Brilliant construct in a new idea of independent filmmaking. So we have formulated something based here in Atlanta. We call it the Black Star Media Group. Blackstar-media.com. And we say we are the vehicle to replace BET, or at least to put out such a great challenge that they will have to, the ones who control BET will have to shift their modalities because we're getting too much attention. We can do that. We can do that right here out of Atlanta. We have all of the resources necessary to do it, except for we need commitment from our people and we need follow through. Some of our people will commit for 4 weeks and then withdraw using whatever available excuse. I'm not one of them kind of people. And if you think that you are one of those kind of commitment and follow-through people, you need to hook up with brothers like the Conscious Rasta, and you need to ask the question, how can I help the Black Star Media Group? I'm looking for, and I'm attempting to train, a group of high-tech individuals. I need at least 7 who say, I will master these technologies. I will master them. And I tell you, if the adults won't do it, I'll do it with sophomores and juniors in high school. Give me your younger brothers. Give me your children. Send them out to our classes every Sunday from 10 a.m. until 12. Send them out to those classes, and I will send them back in 16 weeks. I can show you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if your youth will give up new high-tech sneakers every 3 months, got 4 pairs already, that's enough sneakers to last them for the next 20 years. I've met the young white guys who are building these multi-hundreds of $million worth of corporations in the new technologies. If you read chapter 6 of my book, 666, The Internet and the Rise of the Antichrist, I describe how they invited me to be a part of their thing. I said, well, show it to me. Show me what you got. I want to look in that room too. Show me all of it. I went back a month later, said, I'm still thinking about it. Can I see it again? Only to come back and tell you, we can do it. I described it, what we're to construct. So if our youth would commit, I can show a sophomore in high school that in 2 years of commitment, by the time they graduate high school, they will be worth on the labor market $80,000 a year at 19 years old. I've met the white guys doing it. And you know something? Some of these new, high-tech, white, young millionaires are still wearing their good luck sneakers. Our people get to be thousandaires, and the first thing they do is go out and flash. So we're going to do a better job. I know for a fact it doesn't matter that every seat is full. But it does matter that these video cameras are all in focus. Because within a few months, a few years, within 1 year, the television and the computer are about to merge into one. The thing called broadband is almost completed. And they will be clamoring for content. They will be clamoring for short videos, for lectures and things. Our people can be all over the world. They can be in Zimbabwe, and all we need is a digital encoding device and a DSL line, and the people in Zimbabwe could be listening to me speak right now with about a 1 second, 2 second delay. Can we go there? Yes, we can. The energy to change the things to come. So we have done the best we could to show you that the only thing that has really been holding us back has been our lack of belief in ourselves, our lack of cultural connection to our ancient past, and the lack to utilize those tools that our ancestors put in our hands. I'm going to close with this.
Yeah.
Yes, one more question very, very quickly.
Well, greetings to everyone. The question I want to ask probably entail a lot of, so I'm not sure what I ask, but I'll just throw it out, just in case you can respond to it. I'm reading a book now by David Icke that you mentioned in the lecture.
The British intelligence agent.
Yeah. And my question is, you talk a lot about they in control. My question is, who is they? Because he talks about not so much white supremacy, but the fact that the world is controlled by an intellectual who has an agenda, a word they use in the lecture also. And that agenda is world dominance. And we see it in a lot of stuff, a lot of companies merging, a lot of stuff coming together, like the UN, the Trilateral Commission, CFR, and all those other things. What is your take on all of that? Because you mentioned him as a propagandist or somebody who's spewing wrong information. Now, I am new to a lot of stuff, and I want to be led on the right path. So, if you could just expound a bit on what exactly, or who is in control of leading us astray, and what we can do to counteract that, or we can move along the right path.
Okay. There must be a hierarchy. Just as is the hierarchy of spirituality for myself, I should say, there is the divine creator, then there are the beloved ancestors, then there are the respected elders, then there are the acknowledged peers, and then there are the masses of our people. There must be a hierarchy. If my immediate problem is finding clean and healthy food to feed my children and a good place to educate them, and creating the regeneration of resources necessary to fulfill those immediate needs, it doesn't serve my interest to be thinking about some guy who's living in a castle over in Europe. I'm not even strong enough to challenge him. So what I am attempting to do with the research that I do is to make it as practical as possible. And so, who's in control? We have to ask, what is the issue? If the issue is our childbearing age population, then we would look at the eugenics system. The National Security Establishment has set up a system for population control, and many of the people in positions of leadership within that look like you and me. They're virtually hiring every college graduate black woman they can get to work in the area of population fertility reduction. So therefore, if we're looking at the issue of the contamination of the food, who is in control? Well, on the immediate, it would be those grocery stores. But beyond that, there are other systems. You have to satisfy your real needs. One of the problems I have with the John Colemans, the A. Ralph Eppersons, the Anthony Hilders, and the David Ickeys is that these white guys would always have us focus on, it's the Illuminati conspiracy, which is so far removed and so far distant that you may not be able to do anything directly to impact that system. But as a black male, you can defeat their agenda over your family by committing to the mother of your children. And you know, there are a lot of black males who would rather talk about these great conspiracies than answer the question, yeah, how many children do you have? How close to them do you live? So there's a hierarchy of priorities. It's what our ancestors knew with Ma'at. There was truth, harmony, justice, balance, reciprocity, and propriety. I missed one of them. Truth, justice, harmony, balance, righteousness, reciprocity, and propriety. Propriety means there's a proper order. If you're concerned about the top step, but you're not able to make the early steps, don't even be concerned about the top step. So, I don't like that guy or his book. I did the best I could to thumb through it. I couldn't find anything useful for me because I'm still trying to convince our people that the latex condoms they're giving away are sterilizing our women. I'm still trying to convince our people, despite the fact that the Club of Rome and the Trilateral Commission and these Masonic networks, I'm trying to convince our people that we're losing the fertility war, and that's about the strength of the black family. So we can do better than that. There should be a cadre dedicated to that, but I tell you, we don't even have enough power to be able to come up with a collective agenda. Reparations, we should demand reparations, but we should demand it from ourselves first. And if we're going to demand reparations from others, we have to be tactical and demand it from those who will pay it to us. The U.S. government can't pay us reparations, but the liquor industry could. We've never made the demand of the liquor industry that they owe us $36 billion. Well, some of us say, I'm ready to make that demand, but I need a platform that the liquor industry will have to take seriously. If I were to go or sponsor a million-man march, I would talk about practical solutions and not so much in the by and by hereafter stuff. Emotionalism. The only one who said the word boycott at the million-man march was Jesse Jackson. What's that about? But I would have said to the liquor industry, we have calculated the damage to our community that the consumption of your product has done. We have set up an educational fund, and we have accounts set up for you to deposit the money. The money you owe us is this much, and we have 90 days for you to decide if our withholding our money from you wholly and completely to be enforced by every man and woman and child at the Million Man March. You have 90 days to decide if you can tolerate the economic impact of our action. At the end of 39 days, at the end of 30 days, enough people of ours might be off the alcohol to say, hey, I enjoy being off of the alcohol now. They will be rushing within a week to give us that money because they can't even take the risk that we would be taken seriously. There's much that we can do. The ideas, I put some of the greatest ideas in this book. I'm going to close with this. We have to take ourselves seriously. The ideas in this book will empower our people. It's called 7 Steps to an African Global Order. You don't have to take it seriously. Pat Robertson already has, because Pat Robertson has already gone out and hired this Negro called Eugene Rivers, Reverend Eugene Rivers, to imitate me. I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt. On the cover of Newsweek magazine to imitate us, to use my ideas and put them into place, so they can lead more and more of our people to that decadent, degrading, and debilitating Christianity that they would want to put over all of us. I stand here as your servant. I stand here as an intellectual committed to serving your self-interest. I stand here in front of my beautiful African queen sisters to say we're absolutely disciplined and we know what is required of us. So sisters, we've got you surrounded, we've got you protected. I only ask is that you, the community here in Atlanta and around the world, start to look at brothers like myself and many others like myself and believe in us to the point that you will commit to making sure that we can do what is required of us. So, I'm going to leave you with just 2 paragraphs. From my book, which is called The Road to Power. 2 paragraphs I'm going to leave you with. We pledge to do the righteous work. We are the 7th Millennium Academy of Consciousness, a collection of youthful men and women, supported by our beloved elders who are committed to the sacred principles of Ma'at. Through our works, life itself will be perpetuated, and with the blessing, assistance, and power of the divine creator, we will defeat the enemies of progress who have placed all humanity at peril of annihilation. We shall organize ourselves into groups, small and large, and begin immediately to build those institutions that constitute a bold new global order. We know no limitation to our enlightened vision. We respect no hindrance, and we fear no opposition. No accident or social circumstance will interrupt our course of development. We shall turn every adversarial encounter into an empowering experience, and we shall turn every injury into a weapon that shall guarantee our ultimate victory. We are the living embodiment of history, and thus are not subject to failure, because should we fail in our vision, then history itself, life itself, will be the victim. I thank you very, very much for this moment. My name is Keidi Owadu, a.k.a. the Conscious Rasta. I'll be here all day. I have my books, my audios, and things. Greetings to you all. Thank you.
Keidi Owadu, can we get some approval? Some acceptance? Some acknowledgement for the Conscious Rasta, please. One more time. I need to hear it and feel it at the same time. We are talking about a wealth of information and resources that we ourselves have at our fingertips if we just ask for the truth. That brother asked an interesting question about David Icke. The question is, do we have among us the same amount of information and resources that at the base level, at the grassroots level, can be practical for us to apply to our conditions in our communities? And we do. And that's the effect right there, brother Conscious Rasta. One more time, give it up for him.